recession are consecutive periods of no or very slow economic growth. Economic recessions are characterized by growing and often high unemployment, income loss to households, revenue loss to governments because people can no longer afford to pay taxes or they pay less taxes, and it's just a period of general economic instability. The National Bureau of Economic Research actually dates recessions. It calls a recession when there have been four consecutive quarters of no growth, and it will date when the economy has actually come out of an economic recession as well, with periods of positive growth. They officially dated the recession beginning in 2008, and they officially called the end of the recession as of June last year, so June 2009. So that's when they dated it. But many people don't feel like the recession is actually over because job growth has not rebounded.
Right.
And you know, economists have all kinds of fancy formulas and mathematical equations to measure the exact moment that the recession ended. And it's great that the stock market's bounced back. But if you're still looking for a job out there, it's still a recession. If you can't pay your bills or your mortgage, it's still a recession. No matter what the economists say, it's not a real recovery until people feel it in their own lives. Until Americans who want work can find it. Until families can afford to pay their bills and send their kids to college.
Recession can affect a consumer in a few ways. The first is if that consumer doesn't have a job, that consumer's household often has reduced income, so the consumer can't afford to purchase goods and services. What it means then is that businesses are not selling their goods and services, so it means that their profits are reduced. So if businesses can't sell enough goods and services, the businesses will go out of business. They may declare bankruptcy or have to shut down, and it may be then that what they can offer to consumers, or what's offered, is actually restricted in the marketplace. Sometimes recessions are accompanied by price increases, and that would be a disastrous combination because if you have no income and high prices, it means you're at a complete standstill. Well, many businesses in times of recession do a few things. If they often wages are the largest share of unit costs. So oftentimes what will happen is employers will either lay off or furlough employees in order to reduce their costs because they need to reduce their costs. So that's partly why you see growing unemployment in times of recession. Businesses can also do things like adjust their inventories. They can slow down the purchase of goods and services that they stock. They can cut back on for businesses that are actually production businesses. They can slow down or stall production. So, for instance, car companies might slow down or stall the production of new cars in response to what is called declining demand. So there's a number of ways that businesses can adjust and do adjust. Well, when a business can't cover its basic costs and is not selling enough of its goods or services or the products it offers in order to stay around and to be competitive with other businesses. So it's very painful for businesses to close their doors. Businesses try to avoid that at all costs, but there sometimes come points when it's really difficult to stay open. Businesses will do whatever they can. They might lay off all of their workers so that it might be only the owner that's left. This is particularly the case for small businesses.
Right.
They won't pay themselves, but they'll do everything they can not to have to declare bankruptcies.
I'm very small business. I'm the owner, I'm the chef, I work hard. You don't see out there a lot of business owners work hard. You have to work hard, you have to work extra hours, you have to cut hours, you have to save everything, and calculate everything. So that's the reason why
I think recessions are harder on smaller firms than on larger firms. Smaller firms may not have the kind of cash reserves that larger firms have on hand. It may be that they feel the squeeze between people whose incomes are reduced and are not necessarily buying their products and services. So it may it may be harder for small businesses to be able to borrow. Larger firms that might have cash reserves and ways to buffer might be able to borrow, for instance, for working capital purposes. Those channels may be closed to small firms. So I think it's often harder on them, and often they're the ones who, unfortunately, are the first to probably begin to lay off. The small firm sector is an important sector of the economy because they're also the dynamic sector of the economy. They're the ones that create job growth, and we want to encourage entrepreneurialism. So it's really hard during recessions when small businesses close. So once people start to go back to work, start to spend income again, once people start to feel more optimistic, sometimes there's a good forecast of economic growth, firms may also start to invest in hiring people back, unfurloughing their workers. They may increase production and begin to invest in the future. And so that also helps. That kind of spending helps. It's also important during a recession many times for governments to begin to spend, because often private businesses may not be spending, but government spending can help to create demand in the economy. Government spending, for instance, on infrastructure or on public works projects or support for local public services can help people start to spend again, and it's that kind of consumer spending that helps businesses to begin to feel some hope for the future and to reinvest and begin to increase production and grow. And hopefully at that point, employment growth starts to kick in as well, and people begin to get hired back and make money and start to spend again. So it kind of creates a virtuous circle.
Now, I want to say to America, we can say beyond a shadow of a doubt, today we are headed in the right direction. We are headed in the right direction. All those tough steps we took, they're working. Despite all the naysayers who were predicting failure a year ago, our economy is growing again.